we've kind of found out that maybe we thought that we just had a preference, but turns out we might actually be a statistic.
Then as my relationship with my blackness developed, and I was like, wait a minute, let me go and read. Then I started to actually appreciate me as a black human being. As I developed as a black man, my relationship with black women developed too, because I started to love the fact that I was black.
But I think what really affected my point of view as to what is considered beautiful and what is not, for some reason our society kind of considered us, like kind of made us from a very, very young age to think that being lighter is somehow being better or being more beautiful.
So now let's talk, let's talk about how we got to the mindset. We're not going to do the whole history. Everyone knows about slavery. Everyone knows about the white man coming. But we'll touch on it, and then I want to get into how we've sustained that narrative. Okay. Because, you know, we always say it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. This applies to society, right? Yeah. Yes, we've lived in Africa. Yes, there's a lot of bad history that happened. It's not our fault, but it's our responsibility how we've now navigated that, right? Yeah. I remember in the first episode you ever did on Mantalk, we were talking about social media, digital media, imagery, you know, subconscious things. Exactly. And you said the reason you left social media is because you were thinking how many, this is the exact quote, many of your thoughts are original thoughts. And I think that's a very powerful line, because if we're looking at where we are now, and we can say we've been emancipated from everything that's happened, the fact we're still having these issues means we haven't let go of what happened back then. So now let's talk about media, because even on this is a media platform. I read somewhere that was so interesting when we were talking about the perception of like presenting something, the perception of competence when it comes to acting, when it comes to entertainment, and a lot of that is still, even in Hollywood, it's changed, but a lot of it is still rooted in whiteness. And there was something that blew my mind, right? So back in, I think it's the 70s, when the first kind of cameras, I think it was the 70s, the first cameras were being produced by Kodak, right? There was something called the Shirley card that they had. Now, the Shirley card was how they made their cameras to be able to pick light from the subject, and how they standardized how, I'm not going to get into technicals, but how they standardized how the camera would capture light. Now, what they used was literally a white lady's face. So that's how cameras were being formed from the jump. So from the jump, it wasn't made for us. Like, these cameras were not made for black subjects, right? So even as you go into media, even like there's a BBC card back in the day, white person. So all of these institutions, all of this technology from the jump was around white people. Then one of the things that happened as well, really interesting in Nigeria, is that back in the day when they used to go and now look for wives, be like, and they'd say, send me a picture of these wives, right? I want to see, you know, because, you know, that's how they used to choose, right? Because now there's technology. When they would go, now these are successful guys, by the way. If you're being asked to send a photo, you're a successful guy. So when he's shown pictures, imagine how the subjects look versus the lighter skinned ladies versus the dark skinned ladies. So now, even in, I believe it was Nigeria or Ghana, as these ladies now started getting wives, you would find that because of the way the picture comes out, he's going to pick the light-skinned person. Oh my God. Because the other one will look, quote unquote, like not as appealing. So now women getting married started being lighter skin. This is now back in the day. Let's go. So now this sort of carries on from the imagery. Okay, so then we get to a place where we're a young guy. I'm a young guy in England. You're a young guy here. A lot of our media comes from America. Like, that's been the staple when it comes to movies, films. And America's history is so messed up. We're not going to get into it, but we know how messed up the American history is. So imagine what we're consuming in Africa. We've got our colonialism, and then we've got our media that we love from a place that's literally had the same thing happen to them. Yeah. Then you've got me in a white country like England. I'm consuming everything that's coming from like New York or here. And there was a really funny picture when we're talking about music. Now we're talking about entertainment, where it was a picture of your favorite rappers. It was Jay-Z, it was Diddy, it was Kanye, and like a few others. And then the quote was like, "This is black excellence." Now, the association, they were all with their wives at the back. They're at this, you've probably seen the picture. Yeah. They're at the table. I think it's not Rock Nation brunch, but it was something. And then there was some questions on social media like, okay, how comes the consistent factor here is darker skinned men, and the aspirational wife they all have is Kim K, Beyonce, all of them is light-skinned ladies. And they're saying, okay, how are the young men not going to associate light-skinned
With
ladies
success.
with success if their favorite rapper, their favorite movie has these light-skinned people.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of this episode, we said we're victims.
We are victims.
Everything that has been given to us has said that light skin is better. So now what do we do from there? So like you said, you did the self-development thing. I did the same thing. And we've said the term subconscious bias, right? I feel like everybody, yes, at the start has the subconscious bias. We've been consuming everything. But it's up to you to make it a conscious bias. Because you can sit in ignorance and be like,
goodness.
Oh my goodness,
I keep slipping and falling into these light-skinned girls.
Whoa,
Wow.
But it takes you to say, okay, how many, like you said, are original thoughts? And there's a thing that I want to equate it to that I said with my own story was, as soon as my original thought of myself as a black man came from me appreciating history, came from me appreciating who my family is, the beauty of my family, meant I was now able to appreciate the beauty of my own people, my own like women that look like me. So I think that's a journey young men need to go on. Like they need to go on a journey where they don't listen. We love white people, we love light-skinned people, but we don't glorify that, and at the detriment of you loving yourself.
Exactly.
Because then you're going to be like your favorite rapper and go for a light-skinned person, because at the core
and suffer the consequences.
And like you said, let them get away with more. We love you light-skinned people, we're not saying that, but like you're gonna let them get away with more because at the core you're thinking that this is a trophy, this is success. But I think if you take the journey as a young man and you love yourself so much more, you're more objective, and you're not, having the subconscious bias because you've consciously chose to love you, and then you can now love women regardless of their shade and their tone, because you're now going into a deeper connection because your surface level is gone. You want to find out that person because you're taking the journey with yourself.
Exactly. Because you will now look at them objectively and
100%.
be able to clear that through.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give us an African perspective. So basically some of the findings I think from that will benefit people of color and Africans specifically who kind of listen to our podcast and watch our content. The first thing you need to realize is that colorism is not an idea that has been sourced from black people themselves. Like you said, it is not an original thought. Turns out that the white man, when they came to our country, realized that as much as there are tribal groupings, and they always say that there was a lot of tribal warfare and it was a lot of chaos. Turns out that the research is showing us something different. What the white man actually had to do when they came here was that they had to figure out a way to divide and conquer people. And so when they used force to enslave Africans, they realized that point of warfare and that point of trauma might be a unifying factor here in Africa. So what they decided to do is to divide Africans based on their skin color. So you'd find, turns out that it's not just an American thing, it's also an African thing. That the lighter skin communities, the lighter skin men who could speak Swahili and would use words like, boss, Memsahib. Memsahib is a word that used to be very common in the 60s. In Kenya, it's not that common. Memsahib means big boss or yes, sir. So those words, so the light skin, the Indian population that was brought into Africa was brought in to serve the house, whereas the darker skinned Africans were actually working the farm and tilling the fields.
The same parallel was happening.
Same thing was happening in the US. So what ended up happening was that, and you can check, like the guys who are doing security and the home guards were dark skinned guys. Still, you'll be surprised that same social grouping are the same guys who were also taken to do war in Burma in World War II. Those dark skinned guys, it was never the light skinned guys who were taken for the war. Now the dark skinned guys came back home and fought for independence. Okay. So now I want you to see like the trauma kind of that's been perpetuated. Now once the dark skinned guys got the independence, they started perceiving the white skinned guys as being less African than them. So in a country where it's very funny, where for men the light skinned men were perceived as being feminine, as being the house workers and being soft. The women were perceived as being more valuable and more beautiful because the rich white man used to like the light skinned women. So turns out that colonial mindset still continues today. And the white man intentionally placed it upon the African mind so that we can continue, they can continue to have a grip over us. Another thing that they did that was I found very, very clever, because it has an undertone, is that when you look at the statistics for scholarships among Africans, a lot of the Africans who went abroad, let's say, and studied there, also happened to, get, it's even funny to say. So they went abroad and studied abroad. A lot of them were light-skinned African guys, because their parents, were closest to their masters and understood the value of education. Whereas the other dark-skinned Africans who were tilling the field didn't really know the value of education, were stuck in that country. So again, an economic divide happened. And because the light-skinned guys were raised literally, to be white, a certain percentage of them stayed there, and another percentage of them came back, but came back with white women.
So the color tone still remains.
So the color intonation still remains. So that's why you'll find that there's an elite education of white men, light-skinned men, who sat in boards of companies. And these white men always knew, when they gave us independence, that a light-skinned person is way more familiar, because they'll take care of your interests. And that's why they sit on those boards, and that's why they maintained a lot of the power that they do.
So it's crazy how...
So it's both economic, it's cultural, it's social. So that's what as an African, that's something you need to know, that these things were intentionally put in place.
One of the key things you said at the very start is the fact that to conquer, you have to divide, because unity brings strength. And then we're not going to go into it again, but then if you look at what's happening here, and then the same thing happening in South Africa.
Exactly.
Literally the essence of their whole plan was
now apartheid is the perfect is the perfect example where they were dark-skinned guys in the field, coloreds and whites. And you see that kind of hierarchical mindset is what has really divided Africans for a long time.
So I think with that context, and these are the things that I was looking at, and what made me to a point angry at where my mindset has come from.
There's one part we've almost skipped: the fetishization of dark-skinned people.
Okay, that's
something.
So before we started rolling, we were actually talking to Eric, and he was saying we're talking about, okay, if you want to eliminate a prejudice, it doesn't mean you have to go to the other extreme. Because I've seen this happen. Because so you say in the Western countries, there's not enough opportunity for there's not enough black people on screen, and then you put, no, it's not. It was still based on merit, but you put someone as dark as possible to be able to now play that role. What's his name? Morris Chestnut. He's the big, sexy, dark black man. On the far extreme, you need somebody like Lupita to play a slave. It has to be as dark as possible to show.
She's the one who's shown the suffering. She's the one who's whipped.
Exactly.
It's her who's whipped. It's her.
Still a fantastic actress, but you see the casting.
And she's, my God. Lupita, if you see this.
But you have to,
even touch the mic. Lupita is beautiful.
But I feel like that's the risk that happens. I think the journey we'll take is, I think that's always going to happen, because as long as, and this is the whole conversation when we come to solutions, as long as the people that are making the castings, as long as the people that are in charge of imagery are there, they haven't got the black experience. So in a spout of ignorance, they'll be like, they want black, let's give them as black as possible. And then you start to completely miss the point of equality. Because if you've got another prejudice, you'll never find in the middle.
There'll never be equality.
And the only way there'll be equality is if the people that are actually making decisions are from that community, have been able to do it to Tyler Perry. And now when he's casting, he knows that black experiences encompasses every shade.
But you've taken it where, guy, the problem is Tyler Perry might watch this. Why is it that the dark-skinned bald guy, in fact, let me take off my hat. Why is it that the dark-skinned bald guy is always the one abusing his wife in your stories, Mr. Tyler Perry? What's going on? And why is it that there's always a light-skinned savior in all of your movies? Even that other guy, the guy for... There's this show where there's this green-eyed, light-skinned girl. There's a guy called Kenya Barris. One of his shows, White White Something.
Yeah.
I'll remember it's on Netflix. Really good show. Dear White People.
Okay,
Really good show.
Yeah,
but you'll find that the light-skinned girl, the dark-skinned queen, the one who's even wearing colors, is like the she's the comic relief and the support character to the light-skinned one.
Yeah.
Please, Lord.
Yeah.
You have it wrong. My God, give me that. I show you. The other one, like I forget her name, but like Kenya Barris, like, and Tyler Perry, like there's a lot of, I understand what they're trying to do. And even their portrayal. There was a Kenyan guy actually in that they portrayed a Kenyan. This is how the Kenyan accent sounds like, in case you've been wondering. You guys have been messing.
They never freeze.
They never freeze.
No,
that's not how we speak. So like so Black American film tries to portray Africans as this I don't know how I can explain it. Blackness rather, as these things that needs to be overly glorified rather than something that needs to be understood. I think that's what we should start with. Start with understanding where you, like, what it means to be African and what it means to be Kenyan, or what it means to be, because as much as we're African, we're all different and we have certain nuances. So whenever we see this attempt to make Africans look like a monolith, all of us, like literally, from all 52 countries, I think we are even close to, all 54 countries, no, 52, all 52 countries, actually like roll our eyes. All of us roll our eyes when like media tries to portray us as a monolith. All of us have our certain nuances. And then on top of that, we are not getting anywhere further if we are pandering to the white audiences that tend to dominate television and media abroad. That's what I think.
Yeah, the parallel we're talking about with Tyler Perry, right? And you mentioned the cast of black women in Dear White People, the light-skinned girl is going to be the main comic relief. Now, if you look at now we're talking about the portrayal of a black woman. Yeah, that's Tyler Perry, who is also a victim of the environment he's come from. Exactly. Now, when you parallel that to Shonda Rhimes and How to Get Away with Murder, the casting of Viola Davis as a successful, attractive, intelligent, dark-skinned woman that's come from somebody directing it that is also a black woman. So the only way you're able to accurately portray somebody is if the person in charge is the one making the decisions. Because Tyler Perry, there's a really fun thing that's always said. Fun is the wrong word, but there's something that's always said when it comes to directors, right? Yeah. They say that when it comes to intimate scenes, you can always tell the difference between a male director and a female director. Yeah. It's the same thing when it comes to color. Like Tyler Perry, I don't know what his wife looks like, I'm not familiar, but he's still got this prejudice as much as he tries to fight it. So you can't now say to Tyler Perry, like, I need you to be very objective, because regardless, he's still gonna have that.
No, I agree, but like, Eli, don't you think that it is intentional? Because you also have, I like how you're accounting for the fact that yes, he has obviously the same prejudices, but it's one thing to make a film when you're not aware of that bias, and it's another thing to make the same film when you are conscious of that same bias, because it attracts certain audiences, and those audiences are literally funding your your career. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's happening at the expense of like the truth. You get what I mean? And if you want to correct that, then shouldn't you educate yourself on what is the actual real issue? Like the way, for example, because this is not the first podcast where someone has said, it's a bit too much on the nose. It's...
So the issue of truth, right? If we're looking at the portrayal of a light-skinned lady getting more attraction from black men, is he not showing a mirror lens into America still? He's still, but I feel like what happens is maybe that's 60%, right? So he's showing the 60%, but the person that's going to talk to the 40% is the person within the 40%, the Shonda Rhimes.
I agree.
Like, that's the person. That's what I'm saying. Tyler Perry, as much as he's perpetuating these images and is a victim, he's actually still showing a mirror lens.
He's showing society. A perspective, and I agree with you. But then, don't you also see that if you show a perspective and your audiences and the black, who are you making your movies for? Is the question you should ask yourself. If you see, for me and you, when we watch How to Get Away with Murder, when you see Viola Davis have to tell herself that she is beautiful, that she is attractive, that she is incredible as a black woman and as a person of color, it tells us that this is a debate that the writer and the director have also undergone, and you're very right. But the question is, for the guys who are making movies that are consistently being consumed by white audiences, even more than they're being consumed by black ones, don't you think that there's a disparity? Who is your audience? It's like if Mantalk started making a podcast, and then suddenly we'd get a large inswell of European people watching our content, and then the European people who are watching our content are racist. Wouldn't we ask ourselves, yo, hold on, perhaps you are doing the wrong thing here?
Yeah, facts.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but if we lean into it, then are we not also part of the problem?
True. Yeah, that's the thing. It's staying true regardless of the audience.
Exactly.
As you're saying. So now the final part, we need to talk about solutions.
No, wait. Before we get to that, there's something that popped up in my research, and it's Kenyan. This is a Kenyan girl who has achieved success at an astronomical scale as an influencer and as a content creator, and it's Elsa Majimbo. I think Elsa Majimbo's story is one of the parts where we need to look at as Kenyans and even as Africans and really examine ourselves. Because there's an interview she did in Dubai saying, see, this whole light skin, dark skin thing is all a joke when it's about relationships, but it's a problem when it comes to be something like, why is this dark skin comedian suddenly the toast of the town? Why isn't it these light-skinned girls who are constantly showing us skin online or something? You know, that especially that fetishization of light-skinned women online. There's so much to unpack. But like, I'm trying to keep this as objective as possible. Elsa Majimbo's experience in Kenya as a black girl, as a Kenyan girl, and now she's South African, but like she's always been South African apparently, but like that experience as an African girl achieving success is rubbing some Africans the wrong way because she's not the typical African beauty that Eurocentric beauty standard. And that affects, because I saw her cry in an interview, that affects her confidence. So you tell me, like, if you don't think that there's a problem for us to take a 19-year-old girl who's achieved success and to victimize her just because she's dark skinned, and to even start saying, hey, I don't understand why she's that successful, not because of the objective of her content, but because of the color of her skin. How can we as Africans or as African men or African women sit down and say that we are loving our blackness when it has taken literally another continent, other white audiences to actually uplift this person and what they do? You know, so that for me was also something that I found as the best glaring example of there's a problem here in terms of our mindsets, and that we need to start uplifting our sisters instead of making them feel small in a world that's already trying so hard to do that.
Yeah. The idea of making her feel small because of the color of her skin, right? Kind of speaks to something else I saw. So a stat is that in Nigeria, 70% of women bleach their skin, which is staggering.
It's
77%.
Jesus Christ.
That was 2 years ago. I don't know what it is now. And I read somewhere where this lady, she's a socialite there, I can't remember her name, but she's made an absolute fortune from bleaching products, right? And then they sort of dived into what was your journey when it comes to bleaching. And she said, okay, she's very frank because she's a socialite, she's on Instagram. She said, my journey is that I knew I came from poverty. I knew I needed to make money. I knew I can't make money as a dark-skinned lady because my brand is sexual. So she said, okay, she started to see that when she went lighter, she made more money. So she doubled down and said, let me make the product that makes other people lighter. And I'll be the poster girl for this product. She's like a millionaire now, right? And then the funny thing is when you dive into it, you think that she's going to be an ambassador of this product. Like, I'm making about $2,000 a day from this project. I should be an ambassador. But she actually, when they asked her, why do you think your product does well? It's because she says a lot of women are insecure. And that's why they feel they have to change to appeal to these men who have been whitewashed and associate beauty with being light skinned. So all of her audience, all of her customers are insecure women. This is her words, not mine. They're insecure women that are doing this for men. Then they went deeper and they started talking about now the retailers that are selling them, like even her product. And, oh, by the way, before she finished the interview, they asked her, what's the one thing you changed? She said, I wish I never changed my skin color. And this is a person making $2,000 a day from this product, minimum, right? Then they now went into the resellers. And the same thing, they asked her, why have you changed? This is now just a normal lady. Why have you changed your skin color? Would you ever change it back? The lady literally said, and this is now when we're going to talk about the solution. The lady literally said that I need to be light while I'm dating. When I get married, I might stop bleaching. but I need this to be in the dating pool. I need to be this certain skin color because the men here won't appreciate me otherwise. And then again, what's the one thing you change? I wish I never changed my skin color. Because when you start bleaching, right? So now, if that's the consistent thing where the stat is 70% of women are doing this, and the narrative we're hearing is that a lot of the time it's to do with sexualizing of the men to try and find someone. So what does that say about the black men? And what does that say about the solution to the colorism problem?
Yeah. Now let's get to solutions.
Yeah.
Because that's a good tie-in. So I'm pleased to inform you that before the white man touched our lands, my community used to measure beauty based on her, what was it? I think it's a forehead or something. The size of her forehead and her smile.
Yeah.
We
were fine.
We liked the sauce. I think African communities, we didn't have any Eurocentric beauty standards before this. And what was perceived as beautiful back then, the length of the neck, that's why some people used to wear beads around the neck, you know, earrings, the size, the loop in her earrings,
the gap in her teeth.
Like and still these things remain profoundly attractive once you find and understand the source.
There we go.
Once you understand these things, you will look for them. So like, you know, oh gosh, like, you know, me, I like I said, thick like my grandmother's porridge. That is another beauty standard. We like our women like that. But like I said, not to body shame anyone, but like it's, and I'm not good. I don't know. It's a very slippery slope for us men when you start talking like that. But like, solutions for men is, first of all, really, really think. Because me, I honestly, you know, it's all fun and games when the bias does not affect you, and you know you won't care. But ask yourself, when your wife gives you a daughter who's dark skinned and another one who's light skinned, will you start to, because it's, will you start to give one of your children disproportionate treatment? And don't look at yourself and think that you're better than everyone else. Because how many girls who are dark skinned face that victimization in their own home? They're not told you're beautiful, they're told you're bright. No, small things like those. You're bright. You're not fly. You're bright. You're very smart. You know, instead of, she's the one in the kitchen doing the dishes, while the light skinned one is the one entertaining the guests. You know, these are things that for us men we can look at and laugh at and like try to trivialize, but the truth is they actually hurt our sisters and our women in a way that is absolutely incredible. And as men, even me, like I said, even me, I'm a strong victim. You line up my exes and the women I've been involved with, they all look the same. But I'm trying to change that every day. So I think the thing that has added a lot of value to me is to educate myself around the issue. Actually consume the literature around the issue. And don't look at content that's I think there's always this thing where men always were like, why am I listening to a woman tell me things? Why am I listening to content about women? Because it turns out that these women have been putting out a lot of content. A good example of this is, I don't know if you've seen Iyanla. She's like a famous psychiatrist. She does this on media a lot, where she was talking to women about colorism, because one of the women was a light-skinned girl, a darker skinned girl. Not darker skin, she was a woman of fairer skin. Tweeted something that was absolutely reckless about how black women are less attractive than she is, and she's saying like, shut up. And I think she got triggered, and that's what she wrote. And they actually did a round table around what it means to be a darker skinned woman in America or a lighter skinned woman in America, and how both of them have pains. And if you watch that as a guy, or you watching the Nigerian thing, if you watch that as a guy and you intentionally educate yourself, bruh, like you might actually reduce the amount of pain in this world. That's all I'll say. That, and then the second thing is actually talk to the women in your life. It's not the information you're seeking is not distant. It's not far away. The information you're seeking is actually right there. Like for you, it was your mother and your sister. For me, it was one of my closest female friends who sat me down with her sister and gave me a lashing. So like, that's what I would advise, man. Be more open to hearing conversations from women. There's a lot of narratives around men, like, who listen to women as being more feminine or being less masculine. How are you a king that can't rule without half his kingdom? You're a king who can't rule. without half your kingdom. You have to understand what women think and how they think so that you can make a more abundant life. And the more men understand that, the more men become more inclusive and more aware of that reality. I think the better it is for us as a society as a whole. That's my answer.
Good solutions. My solution, Bob said it best: emancipate yourself from mental slavery. I swear, like, and this would be my parting thought. I think if you want to be the best version of you, you have to be extremely honest with your mindset, right? And I feel like a lot of guys will take time to educate themselves on something that's really feels like it benefits them. It's very light, but having an inward look at yourself and being like, okay, my mindset towards money, why is it like this way? Why is it this way? My mindset towards dressing, hygiene, why is it this way? The same thing, my mindset towards women, why is it this way? And as soon as there's an anger you'll feel when you realize that your mindset is not your own. And it will propel you to be like, no, I want to have my own individual thoughts and take that journey, like I said, with myself, to not glorify something that has come from something so evil. Because the fact that a lot of the things we're glorifying comes from literally somebody making a conscious decision to make my mind that way. And all these years later, I'm still having currents from all those years ago. It should spark an anger in you to feel like my perception of success is still geared towards white people. I still look at white people as having more money. I still look at light-skinned girls as being more of a woman that I want in my life. There should be an anger that comes with you. And when you have that anger, this is what happened to me. When you have that anger, you make such a conscious effort to be like, you're not going to inform how my life looks and how I treat the people in my community. Because that's come from someone outside of your community, right? So for me, I would say have an inward look, be as objective as possible. It's a tough conversation to have. And yes, we're victims, but it's not our fault that it happened. It's not our fault we're colonized, but it's our responsibility to free ourselves from that mindset. And it will go across the board. But since we're talking about colorism, and then be able to actually look for a partner for who they are and not for how they look. Because I think finally, if we're talking about we want to live a happy life, right? A lot of the time, if we're talking about living a happy life, you'll see a lot of people, they'll leave Africa to search for greener pastures to be happier. But when you go there, you're realizing that what you're quoting, quote, happiness is based around money, capitalism. But if you're talking about you want happiness, you should want that from a pure place where it's to do with experiences, people, etc., and not rooted in money. So the same thing should equate when you're looking at the person in your life. Like, you're not looking at them as an aspirational thing. You're looking at them for who they are. And you're not dating someone for society to think you're a successful person because you've got this type of person in your life. So have frank conversations. Start with loving you, then you'll be able to love others. I know it sounds very fairy tale, but it's very true because it happened to me. And then be as objective as possible.
And know yourself, King.
Yeah.
Know yourself.
Know your worth, brother.
Know your worth.
Yeah. So that is, I know there's so much more to unpack, and I'm very conscious with this is probably one of the longest episodes we've done in a while. But I think it's a tough conversation, a really important one.
And it's the first of many.
It's the first of many.
Yeah, you'll notice we didn't jump into statistics. We tried to make this as real.
Yeah, candid and honest
as we can.
As possible. So yeah, I hope guys have those conversations with themselves. So good to be back, bro. Like, just to be back in the chair. There's an amazing season coming. I'm very excited. I don't know how long this episode's been, but I hope...
This episode has been so long, it's cut off blood flow to my leg.
Oh yeah, I got pins and needles. For sure. Oh, yeah, there's pins and needles for sure.
Yeah.
We didn't even get halfway of what I wanted to say, but yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll probably do more. And I'd also want more input, like from women, I think, and from other men.
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to go to what was said on socials, but there was so much, you'll probably carry that conversation on socials. Yeah. Which are linked in the bio of the podcast and also YouTube.
Also, we've decided to put together a little Telegram group, just so that we can kind of interact with you guys closer, so you can get an inside look as to what me and Eli think and what our team thinks and how Berry looks like and how Eric is constantly hiding his face, but one day we're going to show you how he looks like. So all that is going to be in the Telegram group. We'll put the link in our bio as well. I think there's a lot to unpack, and there's a lot of exciting things coming out.
Yeah. Let us know your experiences with colorism as well, and your opinions if you disagree or agree. Love to hear from the ladies and the men and their mindset too. But I hope
you enjoyed making this podcast. Oh crap! I hope you enjoyed
this podcast
half as much as we enjoy making it, because we had a ball. Hey,
see you next episode. See you next week.
Peace. More season, season 10, baby.
Come on,
baby.
Come on.